Well, hey, everybody. Welcome back to another session. My name's Scott, and this is Nathan. And we have been working through Peter Bregman's awesome book called Leading with Emotional Courage. And Nathan and I, as we often tell you, we both work with Celebrate Recovery on Monday nights. Love to have you out. We meet Mondays at 7 in the Hub at Christ Community Church. And we do these videos talking through some really good books, and we bend the conversation often toward recovery. So with that in mind, we have come to what Peter Bregman calls element 4, which is cultivating emotional courage. It's very reminiscent of the title. It's a great element, and this is part 1, feel, that's a verb, feel courageously. And chapter 37 is know what you are feeling, develop your awareness. So Nathan, let me throw it to you. Anything stand out to you about this chapter?
Yeah, I actually had quite a few highlights on chapter 37, and I love the opening because they're walking along the beach and he's saying, I spent a lot of money on my personal development, and there's one line he says, why we do it? That is the big question. Like, why do some of the things that we're talking about? And it goes on to they share the rest of the story about coming across a party group, and basically he's saying it does actually make a difference. It makes a difference in your relationships and your connections to yourself, to others, in my opinion, to God, to the work that you're doing, how emotionally aware you are, how much you're in tune with your feelings. So there's a lot there, because he basically says, the foundation of most dysfunctional organizations are basically people who are repressing emotions. And in his view, emotions will always have their way in the end. So if you try not to feel it, it will come out eventually. Just it'll be lashing out typically with someone that you feel more comfortable with, whether it's a subordinate or whether it's a family member. And that's tragic, because that means that you are unleashing pent up anger on someone that you love. And then it hurts your relationships. It hurts you. And that's not what you want in the end anyway. So
that's right. Yep. Yeah, he starts out the chapter, as you were saying, he and his wife see these college age men on a deck drinking, and he explains in a very vulnerable way that made him feel vulnerable, like, oh my gosh, my wife probably thinks these guys are better than I am, or something like that. Just for whatever reason, he just felt
they're more good looking, they're more charismatic.
Yes. He felt insecure, and so in feeling that, he took the courageous step to tell his wife what he was feeling, and she actually said, "Oh my gosh,
here's what I'm feeling."
Yes, she was not feeling that way at all. She had very negative feelings towards, not very, but negative feelings towards these guys. Not at all what he was thinking. And it reminded me a lot of something Brene Brown says, which I found to be very helpful.
Yeah.
She encourages us to use the line in talking with each other, the story I'm telling myself is.
Yeah.
And so that's what he did. And so Bregman's encouraging us to feel. That's true in this whole 37, 38 chapters and 39. Feel what you're feeling. But then he gives us sage advice, I thought. He says, wait to communicate what you're feeling until you know why you're feeling what you're feeling.
Until you feel vulnerable communicating. I kind of look at it as diagnosing the right problem. Like you mentioned, anger is an easier, a less vulnerable emotion. And we'll communicate, well, I'm really angry at those guys. And actually, you're not angry. You're actually feeling uncertain. You're feeling anxious. You're feeling afraid. And you cannot solve the anger problem because that's not the real problem that exists. It's
Mm,
actually the fear and the anxiety. And so if you're not, you can't treat something that is not true, you know.
that's right. Yep. And then he ends this chapter by encouraging us to become more aware of what we're feeling so that we make
Yeah.
better decisions.
Yep.
And then he
Right.
leads in, right? He leads into the next chapter by ending this chapter by saying, increase your awareness of physical feelings, which reminds me a lot of the body keeps the score.
Absolutely.
So master your awareness of what you are feeling, like where are you feeling it in your body and what does it feel like?
Yeah. I mean, it goes right into chapter 38. And there's even a part that says, hey, can you pinpoint where in your body you feel the emotion? And he says it does have a habit of coming up and going out of you. The more you're able to let your body feel it, because let's face it, emotions are very physical. They're at the base of your brain, they're at the top of your spine, and they're the closest thing to your body movements. um, so I thought it was a great way of saying allow your body to actually feel the emotions it's feeling. I think the biggest thing is permission here. People putting on masks, people trying to deaden their emotions even so they don't feel as greatly, because emotions are intense.
Mm.
And he says, if you're willing to feel it, then you'll be able to handle it.
Yep.
The willing to let its course.
Yep. And that is what chapter 38 is all about. It's called Feeling is Physical, and the subtitle is Dance with Your Monster. And he said something that I thought was very intriguing. He says, reason and feelings speak different languages. We almost might say, it's the difference between the left hemisphere of your brain and the right. He says reason is intellectual and reason favors words, where feelings are physical. And that's what really struck me. Feelings are physical and feelings favor action. So if I get really angry, I may want to do something. If I'm really angry, I may want to pound the desk. I may want to I may want to move. Feelings favor actions.
Yeah.
And he says our minds can advise us all they want, meaning the left side of our brain, but our bodies have the upper hand.
Yeah, because it's physical, and your body will follow closely your relationships than just your thoughts.
That's right.
I mean, that's an obvious one. I think that's why in the church, we don't connect as much to the body. We don't trust emotions, but I do feel like we've lost our ability to speak into, well, how do you deal with powerful emotions? Because other than trying to feel like you can ignore them or deaden them, you do need to be able to still handle them.
Yes. And last night at our men's ministry, I went in that direction. It was like one step before what you just said and what this chapter is saying. We were talking about how, because we're studying Philippians, and Paul tells us not to be anxious in chapter 4. And I asked a group of 25 or so men, how do you generally deal with anxiety? And I let various men who were brave enough to say so talk about what they were feeling and how they dealt with anxiety. And I applauded them, and I said, listen, um, I want our men's ministry and of course our church to be the place where it is safe for you to express what you are feeling
Yeah.
and what you are going through. We don't want to be pharisaical, and I'm not trying to say we are that. I'm just trying to say I think Christians in general sometimes struggle with, oh, I see the standard, and I better dress like I'm living up to the standard, just so
Yes,
people, at least they think I'm that.
absolutely.
But we all struggle in many ways. And so I was
Yeah.
encouraging them, it's okay. Share what you're going through, let it out, find a safe place, safe person.
And I can understand, because you're asking men, okay, well, how do you deal with your anxiety? But let's face it, someone who shows up and they say, I am so anxious today. Oh, well, you must not really believe in God's promises, right? Or you must not really believe in what you say you do.
Mm-hmm.
I.e., I guess you're just faking it then. You're just, you're just a hypocrite, right? And people don't want that either. And yet, at the same time, they really want to feel like the emotions are matching the beliefs too. And so there's a real cycle there that I think Christians can get stuck in.
Yep. Yep. So he, excuse me, he goes on in this chapter to basically say, try and pinpoint in your body where you're feeling the
Yeah.
emotion.
Yeah.
He calls it the monster.
Yeah.
But pinpoint where the monster is living, and then he gives various practical ways. Basically, you've probably heard the old adage, it's not really an adage, but if you're really angry, go into a private room and hit a pillow. That's effectively
Oh
what
yeah.
he find a way where you can
He's giving
safely,
permission for you to do that.
exactly that. Find a way that you feel safe to allow yourself to feel it fully, to kind of get it out. You may have to scream, hit a pillow, but he's basically saying, don't suppress that energy, but let it out in a safe place. And then the conclusion is, once we learn to feel what we're feeling and wisely, compassionately express our feelings, he said, then they won't overpower you. So I thought that was great.
You're again, I don't know if we've ever talked about inner hospitality, but you're giving a little bit of space for your feelings to make themselves heard. And sometimes it is an outburst. You can control where the outburst happens, though. I mean, there's a difference in having a huge outburst in front of my 3-year-old and doing it in the closet by myself.
Right.
Because on one hand, I'm scaring someone I love versus, I just give room to just feel my feelings too. So yeah, it's really important though. It's really important because he says they will come out,
That's right.
So that does lead us actually into chapter 39.
Yes, which is
practice feeling.
Yes, embracing. It's interesting because I felt like, man, now we're really talking about recovery, because the subtitle here is Embracing Temptation.
Yes.
And he spends a lot of time in the beginning of this chapter talking about a client who was tempting him to eat dessert, and he had decided he was going to give up eating sugar, I believe, right?
Yeah. I think it might have been for one of his Jewish holidays, like sort of like Lent.
Okay.
Because he said it wasn't for medical reasons or anything. He just had decided not to eat sugar. But I do love, again, somewhere in here, he's saying the tension of what we're feeling in the moment feels too much. So we release the tension, the feeling, by giving into the temptation. So a lot of people who have, I was thinking of addiction, but I guess even for Hertz, hurts and hangups, it would work too. But we're afraid of that moment where we start feeling that negative feeling. We're
Yeah,
afraid of how powerful that emotion is.
that's right. And he encourages us to, um, again, allow ourselves to feel it, kind of sit there with it, and show yourself that you can withstand the pressure. Because that's what he did with his client. The client
Yeah.
pressed in, really tried to get him to eat this dessert, and he just kept calmly saying, no, thank you. And
Yeah.
after that was all over, he realized, wow, I was actually able to endure that. And I was able to endure the feeling, in this case, of being tempted. And as a result, when he walked away, he felt more confident
Yeah.
to endure more temptation, if you will. I know we're
Yeah.
talking about dessert, but that's how he describes it, and that's
It's a
what it
strong
felt like to him.
temptation for me too.
Yeah, exactly. And he endured it, so his confidence grew. And so
Yeah.
he's just encouraging us to pause, feel the
Yeah.
tension of unsatisfied longing, and then know that you can tolerate that feeling. And again, going back to the title of the book, that tolerance that you can endure builds emotional courage.
And you know what? It was a great way to pause and just feel emotions. Just some deep breathing.
Yes, love it.
Someone once told me, actually, emotion is like the tide, it will come in. But if you can just be still and breathe through it, eventually it will go back down again. I mean, it
Yeah,
will probably come back, but as long as you do it over and over, you can practice basically calming your brain, because it will feel like a little red light blinking in the back of your brain. It's
that's right.
crisis. I feel this. And so you'll want to fight, flight, or freeze. So it's important to have the breath that is just so reconnective from top of your brain to the bottom of your brain.
Yep, absolutely.
Every chapter, we're just going to say, so breathing.
Breathe. Yep. So the whole point there is be aware of what you're feeling, feel it deeply, tolerate the feeling, and that will help you
Yeah.
build emotional courage. So
Yeah.
we will hit pause there ourselves for now, and we'll pick it up next time with chapters 40, 41, and 42. So thanks for joining us today, and we will see you next time.